Welcome, everyone, to Ladder Daily Digest. We honor creators, and we have with us a newish podcaster, Kai. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Gene.
And thanks, Debbie, for co-hosting.
Of course.
And so your podcast is Jesus For Mormons, and we will spend the next 4 hours talking about how you came up with that title.
Is that John DeLynn?
That's right. This John DeLynn Light, right? John would have done in 6 hours what I can do in 4 hours. So anyway, so what was your favorite primary song? No, I'm just kidding. Tell us about your formative years. What was it like growing up where you were, and where were you, what you thought of as a youth in the church?
Yeah, so I grew up north of Seattle in Snohomish County, for those of you who kind of know the area. I grew up as a fully believing, pretty basic childhood, going and doing all of the primary programs. It's funny, I was terrified to go up on stage and say my little one-line part, which is kind of a funny side note that here I have a podcast, and I've always been really outgoing. But grew up just a basic childhood, nothing really that's noteworthy. I would say I gained a testimony of the church, let's say, when after my freshman year of high school. So I was a little bit maybe labeled as a bad kid before that. And
were you disruptive in class?
Full on hard, talk too much in class. Yeah. And which is funny, we homeschool our kids. I know you're like, hardcore Christian guy, homeschools, it all fits. We homeschool our kids, and my son just talks the whole time. It's just like, dude, you ever gonna focus? So
the mother's curse.
Yeah,
I hope you have a child like you someday.
Well, it happens. So pretty basic childhood. I became very hardcore in the church like my sophomore year of high school on, and really tried to live by the tenets, really tried to, it was a really weird shift for me. But I tried to live it and tried to be a really hardcore member of the church.
And you had early morning seminary?
Early morning seminary. My dad was a seminary teacher for 2 of those years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my dad, I'll just speak about my family and parents. My brothers both graduated from BYU. I'm the only black sheep that didn't graduate from there as far as their sons. My parents are the most admirable, great people that I respect out of anyone that I know. They're just awesome. They're great people, highly successful. My dad has muscular dystrophy, and he didn't let that stop him from being one of the most successful people I know. And so I just, he made it in construction with muscular dystrophy. You figure that one out. Yeah, he's awesome. He's the best. So I had that. I was also, if we're talking about formative years, I was also an athlete. So I wrestled my whole life. That kind of culminated my senior year. I won a state championship in wrestling, so in the state of Washington, and that's a huge part of my life. Won some big tournaments, and yeah, so that's kind of a big thing about me growing up. I'm trying to think of what else is important about my youth. I was the deacons, teachers, priest quorum dude, main guy in there, and all those presidencies. So yeah, very, very devoted. My parents we went every single Sunday.
Your family was like,
you had a nice experience with the church. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the church was great growing up, and it's the one true church. Come on, people. I mean, we're we could all laugh about that now, but growing up, I'm like, fully, hardcore into it. I was the token Mormon in our group of friends. That I had all of these different friends in my group, and I was the only one who was Mormon. And I think that was kind of interesting. I saw that as very missional, or every
Right.
member a missionary, right?
You're setting the example.
Yeah, I mean, to a point, but I've always been pretty loose, maybe in how I talk, but I never drank or smoked, or I tried to be pretty straight while being in that social group. So
did they ever have nicknames for you? Like my son was called the Stormin' Mormon at school.
Okay, so this is kind of stupid, and I don't know who gave me this nickname. I think it was because Rocky was kind of popular, but still way past my era. The Mormon Stallion.
Hey, that's not bad. Okay. Could be worse.
Yeah. So I remember I was wrestling in a pretty big tournament in Northern Idaho, tri-state tournament. It's like, I don't know, huge tournament for Washington. And I'm wrestling on the mat, so I'm obviously not leading this. And my team is one person yells Kai Van Leuven, and then everyone else yelled Mormon Stallion. This is like in a big gym. It was very, you can still hear the audio on the video, which is kind of funny.
Maybe it's because every time you walk in a room, you would say, "Yo, Adrian."
I don't think that's the case. So
anyhow,
I would come up with something much more crass, but I'm going to keep it PG.
You had mentioned in a pre-show that you had a story that you were going to tell. You've never told the story in public before, and is it in your high school years or?
Yeah. Wow, that's quite the lead-in. Well, I guess I kind of set the table here. I grew up wrestling very competitively, and the wrestling world is pretty small. Come on, it's not a main sport. It's just kind of, the wrestling world's pretty small. And so I trained in a small local wrestling room that was kind of the hotbed at the time for Washington State wrestling. It was like a who's who of this sport. We're all training in this same room, which happens a lot with sports. And I remember while I was there, I was introduced to a wrestling referee. You can look this up. If you type in Eugene Brian Garvey, you might get some interesting results. Anyways, I was, So I was introduced to this referee in this really big club, USA Everett. And, he took me to a lot of tournaments. He, was kind of there to mentor me. I don't know, befriend me. But this is a guy who's probably in his 30s, 35. So he's a little bit older.
And you're 16, 17?
Maybe 12. Maybe
oh, wow.
12, 13, 14.
Before high school even.
Yeah. So I had trained at this club even as a kid. I think I started there at 10. I was probably introduced to him around 12. But we were from the same town, Lake Stevens, Washington, which, if you know Washington wrestling, that's the top program in the state. And so I got to know him and travel with him, and also introduce him to my friend group, to other people that we trained with, and develop a friendship with him. You fast forward to, I win a state title, and about 2 months later, my senior year of high school, I come to find out that he is secretly sexually assaulting a lot of my friend group that I ended up. Yeah, it's wild that I ended up even introducing him to these people. And I would say for years and years, I've carried around a lot of guilt and shame associated with that situation. It was the typical grooming, befriending, younger, non-fully developed kids. And I've carried it with me for a really long time. It's something that I probably have recently just handed over to Jesus and just kind of healed from. But for, gosh, how long is that? 18 years. I've really held on to, this story. I was at the local community college. I did Running Start, which is like you're in high school and you're in college. I remember I was in class and a police officer came to the door while I'm in class and said, Kai Van Leuven. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like a cop's here. And I was living pretty clean, but I don't know. Still a cop's at the door.
Right.
Calls you out, right? So he calls me out, and this is one of the most fond memories I have. He has me IDing my friends, like IDing people that I know. And I'm just like, oh, dude, like I know, like one of them was like my best friend growing up, like IDing these people. And this is kind of how it weaves into my story. Okay. As when I was probably about 21, 22, he tried to reach out to me. Okay. So he reached out to me from jail. Okay. He calls me. I know this is like a wild story. Hey, we'll lead off with it. He calls me from jail and he's talking to me, and I'm just like, dude, I'll talk to you. I haven't talked to you in a long time. I'll be a friend. I know how weird that might sound, but a friend. And so I'm talking with him, and he's like, hey, I need you to do something for me. And I was like, dude, I'm just going to kind of stop you right there. Like, I know you did all of these things. He's like, what do you mean? Like, come on, dude. Like, we've already been through all this. Yeah, you're in jail. Okay. The due process, I believe in that. It's already happened. Okay. And he's like, dude, after everything I've done for you. And I'm just like, all right, this conversation's over. Like, until you kind of own up to all of the things that you've done, like, I don't think we can kind of carry on having a conversation. So I hang up the phone. I remember I'm driving north on I-5. I hang up the phone and I think to myself, like, what am I supposed to make of this situation? I'd already come home from a mission. I'm already an adult. And it came to me really clearly as I'm kind of wrestling with all of these facts and this situation, and it kind of being re-brought up after years and years. And this is what came to me very clearly. You could say it's from God. Maybe it's my own intuition. It was, Kai, if you ever sense that something is wrong, get out. And I'm like, well, God, that's really dumb advice. Like, obviously, this is a bad situation. I should have distanced myself from this years and years and years ago, and just like
now
not been a part of it. Yeah, now thanks. And hey, me and God are open with each other, okay? But I remember being like, that's such bad advice, and we all know that now. But it kind of leads me into when I started to have my faith crisis, right? Like when I started to uncover things about the church that I'm like as much as there is a sun in the sky right now, like this is not true. This is false. Mm-hmm. And so I actually kind of went back to that experience as I was researching things in the church where, I was like, oh, this is incredibly false, and I need to get out, and I need to do something else. So I think that's kind of maybe a lead into my faith crisis and what happened. I went from fully believing one week to never going back ever again. Yeah.
So let's actually back up and talk about your mission a little bit. But
sure.
Where'd you get sent to? But it is a great story, and we're gonna
thanks, Debbie.
Go through your mission and then come back to your faith crisis.
Yeah, so I went on a mission. That was something where I had to. Me and my wife met when we were 17. I knew I was going to marry my wife at 17. And
did you tell God, or did God tell you that she was the one?
I know that your comment is kind of glib, but I feel that it was a spiritual thing that which was really hard when I left the church, and I was like, yeah, there is no God. You know, you got to wrestle with those things. But yeah, I felt really early on, which I wasn't really looking. I was looking for a girlfriend at 17. I was not looking for a wife. But I knew really early on that we would, and she wasn't a member of the church.
Wow.
So yeah. So I baptized my wife at 18-ish.
Wow.
Yeah. And she decided to wait for me. She didn't date anybody, which I was like, wow.
And are you the
That's her
same
choice.
age, or is she like a year younger? Or?
No, same age. She went away to college and waited. She went to Central Washington, and then you know, we
told her to date. Go ahead, go ahead and date.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Like, test it out. You know, maybe
I'm
you'll find
a
a better
champion.
I don't know.
Nobody's gonna do better than that. But I want you to prove it to yourself. Prove it to yourself that I'm the best guy for you.
I wouldn't say I was like, you know, a complete egomaniac like that, but I was open to the idea of her dating other people. And, you know, I felt that we were going to be together in the end anyways. So it didn't really bother me that much. But I wanted her to enjoy, you know, those 2 years and not just be miserable.
College social scene. You didn't want her to resent maybe.
Sure.
That you prevented her from having fun at college.
Yeah. So I was totally open to that idea. So I ended up going on a mission, and I think that was a really, I don't think I should have in hindsight. I like the people that I met, but I was already kind of on track to maybe be a mature, high functioning adult. I didn't really need this maturation between 19 and 21. I had already like bought my first investment at age 18. I bought a duplex. I was already like tracking to be successful in what I was doing. I had the woman I wanted to marry, but it's a commandment, Gene. Okay.
Right. And you wanted to check the boxes.
Yeah.
Was it, what place in your family are you as a sibling?
I'm the baby.
You're the baby. So
yeah. So you had brothers that had already served their missions. Yeah.
I had one brother who served in Germany, and I had one brother who served in the MTC South. He actually went home early for, you know, whatever. I don't have his permission to tell the story, but yeah, he went home from the MTC. And then my sister didn't serve a mission, but that was pre you know, lots of women going, right? It's not kind of like the way it is now. So yeah, so I was the baby, and
so it was more of a social pressure, not a religious calling. You weren't like, I need to serve this mission. Like, I feel inspired to do
I actually think that it was very religious. Like I very much believed in the church. And I think that was a big thing. My dad put a lot of pressure on me to go. And he, you know, my dad really changed and transformed on his mission. And so I can understand why he put a ton of pressure on me to go.
He didn't want you to miss out on that.
Yeah. On that.
You already were an Eagle Scout.
I was an Eagle Scout. Yep. Yeah. So in a matter of like when I graduated from high school, just to paint a picture, I was an Eagle Scout. I had won a high school state championship, like I mentioned, and then I also got a 2-year degree from our community college. So like right when I graduated high school, you know, I was kind of a very ambitious,
advanced.
Yeah, moving in a certain direction. That was
general ed
positive
degree, or were you able to specialize and take other classes and have it be something other than general ed?
I think it had a pretty heavy business influence. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly can't remember.
You don't remember if it was a business degree or just a general ed?
No. Yeah, that tells you. But yeah, so then I end up going on a mission. The mission is different for me. It was probably one of the few social, like I was hardcore believing that we were, bringing the restored gospel to everyone. Okay. And it's hard for me to say that now. But
And where'd you go?
I went to Missouri St. Louis mission. So yeah,
center of the world.
Yeah.
Mormonism.
Mormon Mecca.
Zion.
Mormon Mecca.
Adam on Diamond is just a seer stone throw away.
Wow. There you go. Yeah. So I went there. It was, my mission was good. It was great that I got to interact with a lot of non-members. And I would say as far as missionaries, I was just kind of like, it was very cliquey. And I didn't really like that vibe, if I'm just being honest. I was just kind of like, why is everyone just so cliquey? It was so weird to me, being on the mission. And, I grew up in the Seattle area. Like, people had an individual identity that wasn't just trying to be, I don't even want to say cool, trying to fit in. So that was always a little weird for me as just as a missionary. That was maybe my main negative from being on a mission, was just how cliquey it was and how, I don't know. I didn't really like that side of it, but I did. Everyone says they worked hard. I was a dog. I worked super hard. Put it all on the line, really every day, tried super hard because I believed in it. And I was just a dog. I mean, from about 18 to 30, I worked super, super hard, and the mission was no exception. I worked really hard out there trying to convert people, and do that. So,
did you have one mission president your whole time?
I had one. Yeah. Yep. He was a Turley, so that's his last name, right? Which is a Mormon family name, right? The Turley, isn't it? Church historian used to be it.
Rick Turley used to be the historian, and he's written a couple of books.
Yeah, probably a relation. I don't know. But yeah, came home from the mission 2 weeks later. Ended up marrying my beautiful wife of however many years that is, 15 years.
That's
Sorry,
right.
I'm not good with
that's even a record for most missionaries, return missionaries, 2 weeks.
It is. So, I think you should get a gold star.
Your future bride must have been doing lots of preparation on your way home.
Yeah, she really wanted to send out announcements when I was still on the mission, and I was like, "Please don't." And she just full sent, just went right for it. So, good for her. She knew what she wanted. I don't mind that. I don't mind somebody being bold. So yeah, we end up getting married, and I am the most just devout, hardcore Mormon, I would like to think. I was called to be a seminary teacher when I was maybe 20, 24, 25. Taught early morning seminary.
It was in the blood. Your dad did it. So
that's true. I never made that connection that both of us did it. Yeah. So my dad did it. I did it. I was in a bunch of elders quorum presidencies, a bunch of young men's. They used to have that, I guess, presidencies. Yeah, just a fully active.
So, but you did all those callings after God telling you, hey, if something doesn't seem right, don't do it.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming on the show, because that means, you didn't think it was wrong to come on the show. So we're in the clear.
No, I would. Hey man, I'll talk with anybody. I love a lot of creative things. I was just full on. I just fully believed it. I built my life on it. I have a podcast where I talk about all the tithing money I gave and all the time I gave and all that stuff. And wrestling with that on the back end of it. But I was just fully active. What had happened was I was living away from my family. So I don't want to chime this up too much, but I'm a real estate investor. So I buy property, and I was living at one of my properties as I renovated it. And I was reading through the gospel app, whatever the gospel, whatever that is. It has the angel Moroni on it. It used to be black. I was reading through that app, and something just kind of like, I just wanted to research something that I didn't understand.
You want a little bit of extra information.
A little bit of extra information. And so then I looked through the app, through the search function, and tried to find more information. And I was like, that just doesn't seem honest. And then I went on Google, that satanic Google. Oh,
dun, dun, dun.
Yep. And I went on there and I typed it in and I got to apologetics on this subject, right? And when you're reading something and you're like, oh, this person's lying to me. Like, this is so not honest. And then the worst thing with apologetics is there's a lot of other topics that you can click on. And so then I started to click on these other subjects. And this is through like Fair LDS. Like, I'm trying to be devout. I know that ex-Mormons are possessed by Satan. Okay. Or whatever, whatever you want to believe. But that's not, sorry. I'm speaking kind of in hyperbole. But, I knew that there are trusted sources and maybe untrusted sources. And so I'll tell you, apologetics are what made me lose my faith, because I'm clicking around on all of these subjects on probably, I think it was on Fair LDS. And each one I'm like, I didn't know this. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Right. I was going to say, there's two things. There's sort of a disingenuousness about the argument, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is like, wait, you're talking about this thing? I thought it was an anti-Mormon lie. You're talking about like you have to defend it, but I always thought it just was not true from the beginning. Why are you defending this anti-Mormon lie? So those are the two things that people think about. And so you were thinking both of those things.
Yeah, and it honestly gave me more questions than answers, and that was a little weird to me. And so then I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to research these because I believe that the church can stand up, honestly. And I'm not trying to say that to be like, but I honestly believe that, hey, if there are problems, I'm a part of the one true church. I can't even like say it with a straight face anymore, but I'm a part of the one true church. And these problems are just going to get solved. And I can look at other sources. So then I stumbled upon the CES letter, and that was the real like backbreaker for me, where I started to, where I said to myself, oh my gosh, this could not be true. Like, this could be completely false. And I went, it's funny, my wife was used to seeing me. I would leave on Monday morning and I would come home Saturday at midnight. That was kind of my, work routine. And she saw me on like a Wednesday or a Thursday. I pulled into the house and she's like,
it's different.
What are you doing home? And I was like, oh, nothing. Just decided to come home, first time in a decade. I quit work early.
Bullshit.
And how many kids did you have by this time?
I had 2 kids.
Mm-hmm.
I just quit my day job, and was just investing full time. And she's just like, no, that's not true. And I was like, hey, let me get a night of sleep and then we can talk about this in the morning. So I went into, I think my kids were sleeping with her because I wasn't home, I went into one of my kids' rooms and I tried to sleep. And then I just kept reading and kept reading and kept reading all night. Didn't sleep at all. And just consuming all of this information that either one, I was told was a complete lie growing up, or 2 was completely new, blindsiding information.
There's kind of also something else that happens. Is like, why didn't I see this before? Right. It was right there in front of me.
Yeah.
like the changes to the Book of Mormon that I remember growing up, having one set of scriptures that said something, and another set of scriptures that were newer said a different thing. Like instead of the Lamanites becoming white and delightsome, they became pure and delightsome, right? So like it changed, right? And then I found out later that there were other changes I wasn't aware of, like Mary was the mother of God in the original Book of Mormon, and then it became the mother of the Son of God, as there was a sort of an expanded view of what the Godhead was or whatever. Those are things like, well, if God said it to Joseph, this should be what is in, because I remember hearing quotes of something would appear to Joseph in his mind or somehow, and he would like just read it, and it was exactly what God wanted, right? And why then
we
would there
were
be
raised
any
with absolute truth, I think, and like what we were raised with was, this is the truth, this is the restoration, these are the facts, and you had that knowledge. And I know that kind of moment when you read that CES letter where you're like, wait, this is true, and this is a truth that I wasn't given. And it is a dark hour to kind of go down that rabbit hole of what's true anymore. You know, it is a shelf breaking kind of experience for sure. A lot of people can relate to that moment.
Were you a early morning seminary teacher at the time? Is this what you were studying for lessons for?
No, I wasn't. I was a Sunday school teacher for the high school. I think it was for the juniors and seniors in our ward. Mm-hmm. And like I had like taught a lesson the week before. You know, I was not
you're like in and out.
I was in.
Wow.
And it's funny. I know I'll do a shameless plug for Jesus for Mormons, but the first
this whole show is a shameless plug for Jesus for Mormons. That's what the purpose of this
there you
channel.
Go. The first episode is literally me saying, Bishop, I want to be put on the do not contact list. So that's the first episode, is me finding out the church is false, and then walking into church the next week, catching the bishop in the hall. And he knows me. I mean, I was temple recommend holder. I was the whole nine, wearing garments, the whole deal. And I pulled him into. I said to him in the hallway, "Hey, I need no one to contact me from the church. I need you to release me from my callings, and you know, I won't be back." And he's like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And he pulls me into his office, and we just start talking about it. We just start talking about what led me to leave. And yeah, he's like, "Well, this isn't a unique thing. Remember this person and this person and this person? They also feel the same way." And I was like, "What?" I just thought they left. Like, I thought that, you know, what happened to them? You know,
moved away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah. So anyways, so that was a real, so that's the beginning of my podcast, is just telling that story of me leaving. And like I led this with on that story, I knew that it was wrong at that point, and I'd already had experiences with wrong things and tried to justify them in my mind and tried to say, well, I got good things out of this. And and it's like, you finally, once you've kind of made the decision that you're not going to kind of put up with the lies, with the deception, whatever, then you're like, okay, I'm out. I don't know where it's going to go from here. I haven't figured out plan B, but I just know that I'm not going to be Mormon anymore. Like,
yeah.
Is this like 6 years ago?
Must have been a fun conversation with your wife. Like, hey, honey, by the way, the whole thing we've been doing, not going to do it anymore.
Well, my wife was like in shock. I mean, she was really in shock that we were not doing that, but we also weren't going to church either. COVID was going on, and so
good point.
Like, I was
so
blessing
4.5 years ago
in our home. Yes, yeah. I was blessed in the sacrament in our home. We were having a lesson, you know, we were trying, and then COVID came just like back for maybe 2 weeks. And then I had we were back in church, you know, in body, for like 2 weeks. And then I had my faith crisis.
Like in July, I think, of 2000. They were kind of like
you would be better with the dates than I would. I should probably pencil them out. But
every day I looked at how many people were contracting the disease and how many people were dying on a world meter. And so
he had better analytics than the government.
Because I had a bet with my son. I said, you know, only like 10,000 people are going to die from this, and it's just going to be, you know, a cold. And so then I stopped being a Trump advisor after that.
Well, there you go. You can still get on his cabinet, dude.
That's right. And so, yeah. So once it hit like 100,000 deaths, and my son said, so do I win the bet yet? It's like, well, no, I haven't seen everybody's death certificate. Maybe they had COVID, but just got hit by a bus. How do you know that didn't happen? But they put it down because he had COVID. So I was a denier for a little while.
That COVID kind of broke the habit for everyone of going to church and doing that part of it. So at least you didn't have a hard break or out of it, you know?
Yeah.
Had a moment of separation.
Yeah. The interesting thing is my wife spoke to my sensibilities during COVID. We hadn't been going to church for a while. And she said, well, on Easter, I want to go to a Christian church. And I was just like, no. And she's like, well, I'm going. you can pick whether or not you want to go. And so we found ourselves in a Christian church. So this is before my faith crisis. So this would have been in April-ish of that same year. We
so
found
the LDS
ourselves.
Church had stopped the meetings, but another Christian church was having a meeting.
Yeah. And they had masks on and all that good jazz. And so we ended up going to this Christian church. And my wife gets saved at that church, which I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is getting worse. Like we haven't been going to church. My wife gets saved in this church, and I'm just like, oh man. So now I got to get my wife back on the Mormon train. Yeah, it wasn't good, and I was super angry and annoyed. Just with that my wife had decided to kind of, you know, do that. So we came up with a church plan where I was going to go with them every other week. And then I was still going to go to the Mormon church every week. And so,
had she been questioning the Mormon church before that?
I think she had been a willing participant to go. I think she had gone and tried to kind of make it work, but she's like, I didn't grow up in this. This isn't my culture.
Yeah, she was a convert.
She's a convert, and she's just like, I don't know. I mean, that's okay. We'll come here. There's nice people here, but like,
right. But funeral potatoes and Jell-O salad just didn't convert her all the way.
Yeah, and I think that just the theology, she wasn't. There is a thing about having kids that will change how you view where your life is going. And I think for her, she's like, am I just going to be kind of apathetic towards religion and just go along with this? Or am I going to, and okay, I'm going to be weird spiritual person, but if you, I honestly believe that there was revival kind of happening behind the scenes in our family. So revival would be like change or people, you know, moving in a different direction. My son, who never wanted to go to church, ended up going to a Christian co-op and kind of started to be really interested in church all of a sudden. And I'm like, dude, we've been going to church forever, dude. Like, and I've been trying to, you know, lead you, my oldest son. I've been trying to like get you involved in it, and you've never really like felt good about it. And here you are, you've been going for a couple of weeks to this Christian co-op, and you're like all about God, and you're praying, and you're like, I'm like, Oh my gosh, dude. So why can't this be through a
It's
Mormon
so
lens?
true. It's so true. My kids did the
Anyways.
same thing. Like, I tried to put them in the Mormon thing. They're like, no. So then we went to a Christian church. They're like, okay. And now they're like, okay, I like it. It's
Well, you know, that
interesting.
was,
Your kids can definitely change things for you.
in a way, that was Joseph Smith's family's experience, right? Some were Methodist, some were Universal Unitarian, some were other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have a
13.
hard time trusting anything from Joseph Smith's history. I'm just gonna be
Right.
just straight up. But I mean, yes, in theory. Yeah, that was in theory, that was. So yeah,
So your wife was the first one to kind of dissent before you did. She was already toe out the door.
yeah, yep. And I think you could point at that and you could say, well, Kai, you're just taking the path of least resistance and you didn't want to be a part member family and all those things. And I'll take that criticism. You know, I think, but I also believe that the church should be able to stand on its own. And I should say, hey, you know what, man, hell or high water, I'm in the church and I believe its tenets and I'm staying in there, even when things come up.
That's right. That was part of your motivation to prove the church right, was to be an example to your wife. Maybe someday she'll come back or whatever, because you have the proof. The receipts.
And I'll be honest with you, Gene, I still wish the church was right. I still do. I mean, that's what I know. Like, I'm Mormon. If I talk with you, Gene, it's like, yeah, that's a fellow Mormon. Let's talk with you, Debbie. You're a fellow Mormon person. Like, that is our clan.
Shared experience.
That's our shared experience, our culture. Okay. Yeah. And I still kind of feel that way. Like, that there is this part of me that will always be Mormon, that will always, you know, I don't even want to say defend it, but at least defend it socially. Like, defend like the people I grew up with, I think are good, sincere people. I think that there are a lot of people who are trying really hard to make it work in the church. And in a way, I hope that ignorance is bliss for them, that they, in a way, I hope they don't stumble on all these things that caused my life to be awful. And for a year, so
I sometimes consider religions like flavors of ice cream, right? So there's Hollister is 90 miles south of me, and it's like the garlic capital of the world, and they have garlic flavored ice cream when you go to their festivals. And it's ice cream, right? It's good, but it's like weird to think about it, right? And so Mormonism is kind of like garlic flavored ice cream. It's not for everybody, right? One out of every, we'll say 300 people, it's like the flavor, right? And even if somebody else said, no, strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla is way better, and you try it, you're probably going to still say, but I had a lot of good experiences with garlic ice cream when I loved it, right? And you're still going to go back to it every now and then, at least, mentally, or you get a chance, to taste it again. It's like, yeah, I remember it being really good. Same thing for me and my family, but we bought black licorice flavored ice cream once. And it was kind of the same thing. It was the best thing ever for a week. And then it's like, let's move on. Let's have some variety or whatever. And so yeah, garlic ice cream.
I think it's hard to come to terms with something that you love and you believe in and is a keystone in your life, and then to have it fall apart. It's almost like being cheated on spiritually. Like, if you came home and your wife or your spouse had a totally different identity or a whole different secret life that you didn't know about, it's almost as traumatic as that kind of experience where you're like, who are you? What have you been my whole life? Like, I thought you were this kind of person. And I feel that's my relationship with the Mormon church. Was I came home one day and it was like my religion had a whole different identity that they told me, oh, no, honey, I'm not cheating on you. Oh, no, that's not what you think. that put that under the rug, put it on his shelf, and then for it to like come out and it's just like, wow, it is devastating. And I think I can agree with you. I hope people can make it work, because having that experience is very traumatic as far as your shelf breaking and then having to sort out what you want to keep and what you want to throw away. And obviously you wanted to keep the good Christian part of it and the Jesus part, which is fabulous. Tell us how you found that, because I'm sure you had an atheistic moment where you're like, God, we're done. I'm breaking up with you. Maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it was, I definitely had a walking away from all religious. I mean, I think just as a coping mechanism, I just didn't want to be hurt.
The one true church was false, and so none of them are true.
Yeah. And so I wanted to just distance myself completely. It was really hard because my wife wanted to go to this new church she had found. My kids were like loving it. Everyone's like, rah, rah, Jesus all the way. And then you have me who's just like, no, like, religion is there to trick people. Religion is there to, people to weaponize your own feelings against you. Like, I want nothing to do with this. And there's a funny episode in my podcast of why I hated Brandon, who's the lead pastor of this mega church I go to.
That's a great topic. Sorry, I had to laugh.
It's fun. So, and I talk about how it's really built into Mormons and ex-Mormons to distrust spiritual leadership outside of the Mormon church. That's a thing. That's, if you look at like all of their churches were an abomination and their leaders draw near to me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. It's just anti-Christian, transition or whatever is built into us to be bad, and that everyone's intentions are bad. In hindsight, whose intentions were bad? Anyways, but it's like the church has gaslit us. That's weird. So I went into the Christian church just being like, this is all crap. I want nothing to do with this. And I'll tell you, for a period of time, I didn't want to heal from what had happened to me in the Mormon church. I'll just be honest. I just didn't want to heal. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to be upset. And I wanted to, blast the bad guys, which was the church and the lies.
We get some brain chemicals from that.
Yeah. I think you get some good, like, one of my favorite. Yeah, one of my favorite lines.
Anger and revenge are two very much stages of grief. Don't forget those two; they're important.
Sure, and there's kind of a not so popular Sublime song. It's called April 26, 1992, and what it's about is it's about the Rodney King riots, and the author of the song says, but when you look at the streets, it wasn't about Rodney King and this messed up situation and these messed up police. It's about growing up and staying on top and screaming 187, and I'll edit this, on a mother tripping cop. And so when you look at those lyrics, it wasn't really about the church. It was about my anger towards the church, right? It was about how angry I felt as I left, when I left the church. And I had a hard time separating. Hey, Sublime got in on this episode. I had a hard time separating my belief and my faith in God from how the church had materially lied to me. And I thought that they were one and the same. And I had a hard time moving past that. And I wanted to be angry. I wanted to be upset. And that took a lot of time for me to start to say, okay, Kai, is this the way that you're like going to live your whole life? Are you going to live your whole life angry, upset, nihilistic, thinking it's all a waste. Is that the way you're going to live your whole life? And I had to kind of wrestle with that question of like, you can. I mean, we see it. We're ex-Mormon. We see it. Come on.
Absolutely.
And so I said, is that the way I'm going to live my whole life? And I started to kind of be like, okay, well, maybe it's a different religion. Maybe it's this other thing. Maybe it's this. And slowly I started to be like, okay, maybe God's real. That was kind of step one. Maybe the Jesus story is something I can believe in. That's a very distant step two. And I just, as I kind of kept reaching out to God, I felt myself getting more healed, more like that anger that I felt towards the church kind of start to die down a little bit. And, you know, there's still a little edge in me still, but I just felt myself starting to heal. And I remember being in a Christian church, folding my arms, saying, this is all crap. Maybe for 8 months, 9 months. And then, you know, my heart just started to heal. And I started to say, maybe, you know, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal to, you know, do it. And then, you know, I gave my life to Christ in April. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad with years, of 22. So I'm pretty new to Christianity.
So how does that happen? You're at a meeting, and what happens?
Yeah. So yeah, which is such a foreign, weird
Different
idea,
than a Mormon
right?
experience. I know you got to tell the Mormons what this is like, so they know.
Yeah. So, and I hate to get so Christianese on you guys, but what it is so you're in this, and you just decide like, hey, do I believe in Jesus? Like, do I believe that Jesus really lived? And do I believe in the supernatural events? Not, do I know? There's a big distinction. But do I believe? Like, do I believe that this is something that, you know, that Jesus came, died, and rose again, and that puts me in a relationship with God? And if you do, then you just acknowledge that. You just say, hey, I believe that. I believe that that's something that happened. And I would say at that point, I was saved. So I was in a religious building. They asked, do you believe that? And I said, yes, I do. And from that point on, I've just been walking with Jesus. It's not a big grand production. It's not.
So you didn't like walk up to the front after they said, who wants to be saved today? And they didn't like slap your head and say, devil be gone, or anything like that?
They didn't do that. I mean, now with how charismatic I am, I'd be like, why not, dude? Let's do it.
Take that devil out of me.
But no, and I've actually never even seen that, but I think it'd be maybe a fun experience. I'd be open to it. Hey, why not? So no, it was just a simple thing of like me being like, yeah, like I accept this, and I'm gonna try to walk with Jesus. I'm gonna try to walk with God for the rest of my life. And yeah, that was less hyper spiritual. My baptism, now that was wild. Okay, so if you want a wild story, I'm coaching wrestling. Okay, and I'm coaching, and this is a Wednesday night service. So I'm coaching, and they had this revival service, and I'm like, okay, you know, and I've recently been saved. Like I'd only been saved maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 months. They have this revival service, and I just got done coaching, which means I just got done yelling a lot. I pull up to this church, and it is packed. There's probably, I double park somebody, went in, and I said, God, okay, you talk about revival. You talk like revival is like people just being saved, just like over and over, like really Jesus moving through a crowd, the Holy Spirit moving through a crowd. Okay. I just want to make sure we know what the term is. And I'm like, God, if you really want like this, like if I'm supposed to experience anything, like let me know and have it be clear. And I was like, this is the way that I think it would be cool if it were clear. I don't want to cry.
That's right. You were setting the stage. You're saying this is the thing that will convince me.
Yeah, this is like the moment, right? So I'm late, and I said I want this specific song to be playing as I walk into, this church. I want this song. I'm late. I pull in. I get out of my car. It's not playing. I put my hand on the door to go into where this event's happening. First note hits. Boom, right then. I was like, oh dang. All right. I'm a little more open to this situation. So I walk in, it's playing. I'm like, okay, I'm kind of into it. There were things that were said that were things that I was thinking, like before I walked in. I'm like, okay, like I actually feel like this is a very spiritual moment for me. The end of the service happens. People are getting baptized. I'm watching it. And these are all planned ahead of time. Like people, they kind of have a shirt, a certain shirt that they wear when people get baptized. And at that moment, I was like, it came to me. It's like, Kai, you just need to be baptized right now. I'm in full clothes. I can come prepared. I have a brand new shirt, which, kind of went the way of the coyote as this one, or kind of went to the wayside. Brand new pants. It's just like, yeah, Kai, you need to be baptized. So right there, spontaneously, I took my shoes and socks off, hopped in, was baptized. It was beautiful. So anyways, sure. That's my hyper spiritual side of this movement. So
yeah.
I love when you make bargains with God and he listens and gives you what you need. Those are really cool moments in life. And I never had one of those in the church, but I've had them outside the church. So I like a good story like that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally beautiful. And maybe that leads into the podcast of why. I don't want to get too long in the tooth. So sorry, Gene, if I'm taking too much time. But the podcast was really, I got saved in this church. I obviously got baptized in this church. I shouldn't even say in this church, as a Christian, as a believer. And I just found myself like wanting in a very Mormon-y way saying, okay, Kai, you've experienced this. You've experienced a ton of healing. And I'm talking about just my attitude towards life, my attitude towards people. You've kind of been healed from this. Like, can you, there are other people that are hurting who have left. And we don't need to go over that. Like, I can talk about just Snohomish County and people who have left. And I mean, we're talking about all of the bad things with a faith crisis, suicide, nihilism. I mean, I saw all of those in my little bubble of Snohomish County and people that I served with in the church, all those things. And I'll be honest, what bothered me was that I saw all of these people leaving the church and turning to, well, hey, it's all false, and turning down that road that I turned down and never really and really discounting all the other experiences they had with God while they were in the church or whatever, or even outside of the church, and saying, oh, that was just my own emotion. That was elevated emotion. That was this, that was that. And I just think I don't think that helps our community heal. Like, I don't think that helps our ex-Mormon community heal. I think it, and so I started this podcast, Jesus for Mormons, just talking about my experience leaving the church and the healing that I've had since leaving, and all of the ways my mind changed, since then. And I just think it's been super beautiful. My whole life flipped. We decided to have more kids. I moved to Hawaii. We like that, being reborn, in Christ, or being reborn and just totally changing your whole life. It's like everything went on the table for us. And I would have never wanted to do a podcast. It's putting a lot of really vulnerable things about me out there that I don't really like. But I wanted to just share my story and share where how I found healing outside of Mormonism. So
That's right. And
That's
how did you
awesome.
come up with Jesus
That's
for
awesome.
Mormons as your thing, as your title?
okay, so my title, Jesus for Mormons, I know is not clickbait for people who have left the church, okay, and who are angry, and that's the point. I'm just going to be straight up. The idea of being friends with somebody so that you can give them a Book of Mormon is something that people in the church are all too familiar with. I'm putting my intentions fully out there. Jesus for Mormons. Okay. there is no like, oh, hey, let's warm you up with, I'm going to tell you something and string you along until I really get to tell you my true intentions, which is to tell you about Jesus. That's not my flavor. That's not my cup of tea. It's literally, if you click on a video of mine, if you watch my channel, it's a pro belief channel where, because I just don't think people need to be like, I don't even want to say lied to, but led along.
No
And
milk
so,
before the meat.
yeah, it's literally like, this is somebody's story about leaving the Mormon church and being in a relationship with Jesus. Not, hey, he's doing a little TikTok dance video. Oh, I wonder what he's about. And then it's like that's the total Mormon thing, right?
So does that mean we're not going to get a plate of cookies to watch your channel?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways. So it's just not my flavor. And my wife and I were actually talking about the brand yesterday, and she's like, well, maybe you should have led in a little softer. I'm like, no, that is literally Mormonism of just let's kind of do a bait and switch on people. Let's act like it's one thing, oh yeah, let's be these people's friends so we can invite them to church, and I just think it's really deceptive. And so my name is what it is because I just want to be as honest and as straightforward as I can possibly be.
Did you plan out 10 episodes, or did you just do the first one and then afterwards think, oh, what should I do next?
I planned them all out.
Okay.
And then I've rewritten them because I'm hypercritical of myself, for being honest. And my co-host is Di Beals, who is a mega church pastor.
Oh yeah, how did that co-hosting situation happen?
I'll tell you, and people can say, "Oh, this is this guy. This is a super."
And don't say it was a gift from God. No, I'm just teasing.
Okay, well, then you're going to be disappointed, Gene. No, this is what happened. I was actually asked to be on her husband's podcast.
Huh.
So he has a podcast, and we did the whole recording, and he's like, dude, because he would say dude, he's not your typical pastor. He's got the tattoos. He's got a house in Vegas. He's, why not? He's like, dude, you should do a podcast. And I'm like, funny you say that. I already have every episode written. And he's like, and you should do it with my wife. And I was like, no, I'm doing this solo. I'm doing this on my own. And I thought about his wife. Di is incredibly talented, empathetic, and she's not just that on a stage with 3,000 people at her church. She's a very down to earth, good off stage or off camera, off whatever. I ask her things, and she's just a rock solid gal. She's also a female pastor, ordained, all that stuff. So the women in, ordained women movement, I think that's kind of cool. That I have a gal who's, my co-host, and she's just totally rad. And so it's fun having her on there. And we just go over topic by topic of the hard stuff of my faith crisis, how I wrestled with all these ideas, and while being in the church, it's funny because I like blast my impressions of Christianity. Like I blast her all the time with stuff, and she's just like, all right, well, let's go, let's dissect this a little bit. So it's not sterile.
Exist. Let's
that?
Talk about them. Caricatures exist. Let's talk about them.
Yeah, and she's super open about everything. And I just think it's a really good, I just think it's really healthy. I think there's a lot of healthy churches. I think as Mormons, we want to say, we want to take the weirdest parts of Christianity and be like, see, all those Christian people are weird, and I'm so glad I'm not involved with it. And, you could go to churches and it could not be your flavor. But I think it's about finding the right place to be and to be influenced by good people and good community and all those things. So, yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, how do you feel your relationship from Mormon Jesus is different from this now Jesus that you have come to know and who has saved you? Like, because you were in a religion your whole life that says it is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they say they are Christian, but there's obviously a profound difference between the two. And
Debbie, you're bringing in some controversy here for me, because I'm friends with those, I will say, Mormon Jesus people, which I think is kind of, I find it to be kind of a derogatory term. It is, to me, it is the same Jesus. And I know that this will maybe tick some people off, but I don't really care. But it is the leadership that you are being led under. Do you want to be led under honest leadership that's just going to say, I actually don't know. I don't know, like, some of these questions that you have. Like, I don't know that. Joseph Smith always tried to kind of fill in the blanks of like all of these things. But there is this thing of like integrity where people will just be like, yeah, it's not really that clear about these types of things. And I think if you're part of a church that is led by a character like Joseph Smith or like Brigham Young, I think you should leave. I think if you're part of a Christian church that is led by somebody who is deceptive, led by somebody who is not straightforward with its membership, which we definitely know Joseph was, I think that you should leave and you should find a better community of believers. And so to me, this is kind of I personally think that the Mormon church leverages Jesus to promote its brand of Christianity.
Okay.
I think
that's a big difference for sure. Okay.
Yeah. And
he's commercial Jesus. He's like the Big Mac of Jesus. Maybe.
He's like the
Whereas
guy.
you can have a better home cooked meal versus.
and listen to, and this is a theory I have. Every time the Quorum of the 15 the screws are put to them on their history, the screws are put to them on dishonesty of the past, listen to their response. It turns to, we love Jesus so much. Jesus is just being leveraged to promote their brand, right? It's not, when the screws get put to him, they don't go, well, Joseph Smith was, so close to God. He's done more for man, save Jesus only, because they know that's a leg they cannot stand on. If you get what I'm saying, like they're not turning to Joseph real quick. They're like, we just love Jesus so much. And that's kind of their get out of jail free card. And I personally, for me, I'm like, no, like you've said that this is the one true church on the earth. You should be doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, and you should have the facts to support that Joseph Smith did all of the things that he said he did. Like, you should have those facts. You're the prophet. Look into a stone in the hat. Get the facts.
So you think they're hiding behind Jesus's robe skirts?
Yeah, and I think the rebrand is totally about that. It's like, oh, Mormon, oh, that's weird, and we've kind of gotten caught, and oh, we got to go to, you know, demanding that people call us the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Again, they're trying to hide, and they're trying to leverage Jesus. If they weren't being called to the carpet so much, it would be Joseph Smith is the best, and this is the keystone of our religion, the Book of Mormon, and this is what we're gonna die. But they're being called out so much that that's not what they're doing. They're hiding behind Jesus. And why it bothers me so much is I'm a Christian believer, and the Jesus that I know wouldn't support the things that they're pushing out there. Wouldn't support Joseph Smith's lifestyle. Wouldn't support Brigham Young's lifestyle.
I agree with all those answers. Yeah. So, okay.
That's right.
That was a good answer.
Well,
I like it.
And that was a great question, Debbie. That's why Debbie is on our show. It's because she's very curious, is what I'm saying. So that was a great
question. And I'm curious, like, has your family embraced this new side of you? Because I'm sure they're still Mormons or true believing Mormons. Have they kind of gone, oh, okay, it's gotten a little weird on us? Or are they like, hey, we like this version of you. You're nicer, better. We're glad you found something. Are they happy for you? How does that work?
That's a real mixed bag. It's just mixed.
Okay.
It's my dad just kind of cool with, okay, I guess so. You know, like my dad's tactical, so he'll pick his time. I know my dad, very tactical. It might be 10 years down the line and my life might go to crap, and he might say, well, maybe you should stay in the church.
He's waiting in the bushes for you at the right time.
And that's not a dig on my dad. My dad's just a tactical person. You know, he's not going to go nuclear. My mom has had a really hard time with it. I don't know if I want to tell this story. I'll tell it. My oldest brother, who is full on believing active Mormon, he kind of had a hard time with it, and we were on kind of a walk together. I don't know how to explain it other than that. And he was kind of giving me some attitude about it. And I said, what the fuck, dude? Like, what's wrong with you? Sorry, my kids are in the other room. And I just said, what, like, dude, we've been close our whole lives. Like, why right now are you just like deciding that now I'm like a crappy person? Like, we've been close forever, and now you're just like, oh, Kai's going down this. Sorry to use the F word, Gene, but no, I just think that it's like, and I just kind of called him out on it, and ever since then we've had a really healthy relationship with it, and he's called me out too. He said, dude, you're just hating on the church. And sometimes he's been right. Like, I'll give him that. Like, sometimes I've just been like, yeah, the church can do no right. At this season of my life, the Mormon church can do no right. Okay. And so I give him that. But my other brother, it's actually brought us closer together. He left after getting home early from his mission, and me and him have been closer together. My sister and I are about the same. Just, we like to laugh and have fun and joke around, and she hasn't probably let it affect our relationship. So yeah, it's just been a mixed bag. Yeah, of things. But I do think it's important for people to just be straightforward. Like, I can't be as straightforward with my mom because we're not peers. She's my mom, but I can be straightforward with my brother. We're peers, and I can just say, dude, what's your problem, man? That's what I should have said, Gene, if you edit this.
I would love to have that conversation with my brother personally. So I'm very jealous. In those words. That's good.
Oh, it was definitely said in those words, and we kind of had it, but we moved forward, and we have a beautiful relationship. My brother's awesome dude, and my brother should be a general authority. He's an awesome dude. Like, it would give the Quorum of the 15 a dose of reality, and I think it would be a great thing. So anyways, hey, he's an attorney. The church loves attorneys.
There you go.
Hey, he's well on his way. He's well on his way. And he went to BYU. Check.
Yeah, there you go. Graduated summa cum laude. I don't know even how to say that stuff, but graduated top of his class from law school. So
cool.
Wow. I see it in his future.
Yeah.
So
the church
I
is
am
smart.
very entertained by you, right? Are your
your topics
you
are
tone
great.
it down
Would
for your
Joseph Smith
podcast?
kill your dog? I love it.
Yeah, I toned it down a little bit. Mostly, dude, Di is game for anything. She really is game for anything. But I feel bad dragging a pastor on and kind of being fully nuclear. But she just, dude, she does not care. Like she'll just let me fly with it. And I in the very beginning, I was very nervous about like getting Di in hot water with me being so blah. And now it's just like hit record. We're gonna say whatever we need to say, and it's very unfiltered right now. In the beginning, it's a little filtered, but I guess that's just me being honest about it. It's a little bit filtered, but I think that all of the content is really good. This is not a long-term play for me, Gene. I'll go on the record. I'm putting 2 years in. I have a 2-year mission.
There you go.
Then I'm going to get out of producing content.
You're just going to let it ride.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to coach wrestling. I'm going to do what I kind of want to do, but I feel like called to do this. I mean, if I'm just being straight up, I feel that this is what I'm supposed to do right now. And I know you might get some criticism for that.
Good.
Yeah,
no, your intentions are good because a lot of people do leave and they don't have a sounding board. And it is existential where you're like, what do I even think about any of my religious identification? And I think it's nice for people to realize that there is healing either way. However you find it, I think the most important thing is finding healing in some way, because it is like when you said, do you want to be this person who, like an angry person? I remember feeling that way. Like, do I want to spend the rest of my life angry and resentful and
that's right,
disappointed?
And
because that's not my nature.
God has said to you, look, I gave you a BS meter. Use it, Kai. Right?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly.
So if this is a step to something else, it's what it is, right? And so
yeah, I kind of hope not. Like the more I'm around pastors, I'm like, it's hard and it's brutal. It's spiritually like brutal. Like these people have, it's super hard. Like that's one reason why I don't want to do it. Like you pour your heart out to people and then they're just like, oh yeah, we're never coming to your church again. It's brutal. Yeah. And I don't really have an interest.
But few are chosen.
And why are they? And one thing I like about your title is everybody is always something for Jesus, right? And I like how you say Jesus for something. That's pretty good, I think. It's pretty good. Tactical.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And I just want people to know what they're getting themselves into. I don't want them to feel blindsided by the title of my podcast or by me or die or whatever. I just want to be straightforward. And I honestly, I know that this is what everyone says, but I honestly want there to be a lot of healing in our community, like in our ex-Mormon community. I wish that when I went on ex-Mormon subreddit, it's not so angry and hateful. And you know what I mean? Like I got an axe to grind with the church too. Like, but I just worry about those people behind the screen, and I worry about their health. I worry about how happy they are. Sincerely, I feel that way. Yeah. I mean, that's really the whole reason behind this. My channel will never monetize. I'm just going to do it. I want to do it for the right reasons. Put it out there.
You don't mean never because you've seen the writing on the wall. You just mean never because you're not that. It's not something that you're going after anyway. Yeah,
I'm a pretty money oriented person, and I just don't want.
So you're missing out on like $2.07 a day. I'm telling you, I'm just rolling in. You're going to regret not monetizing someday, I bet.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I actually don't even know the statistics or whatever.
And I've been doing it for a year and a half, and I just told you exactly what my thing was. The last report that I got, and it's
Gene.
So I'm at like 1,260, I think, subscribers. We get like 250 to 400 views on average after a few weeks. Each show is like $3 to $9, but I make it up in volume. Even though what my dad say, I lose 30 cents on each item, but I make it up in volume.
Gene, I will say this because I've been hanging out with Gene for a while. Gene finds the most interesting people to tell their stories because he and
we let Kai on anyway.
Yeah, there you go.
I love Kai's story. I think it's a great story because it has a happy ending. I hate when stories turn out sad.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of sad stories in the Mormon, ex-Mormon community, and a lot of people who do need healing because their experience was not as pleasant or as nice. And
I'm actually
going to find things good. It's good.
Yeah. And I'm going to challenge you on one thing. My son says that pretty soon AI is going to be able to take like all your podcasts and write a book for you. So I want you to do that and tell everybody,
oh, there you go.
AI took all my podcasts and wrote this book for me, and I'm putting my name on it, and I just want to see what happens. So if anybody wants to see, just do it. So we'll see how good AI is in a year and a half.
Yeah, I think that'd be awesome. I mean, I don't know how I feel about hard books, like as far as well, this isn't a
being an author.
Yeah, being an author. But I'm kind of working on a like 30-minute special of kind of summarizing a lot of this story, just to share, because I won't get behind the genesis of it, but just to share where I went in a really condensed, view. This wasn't bad. This was halfway decent, view of where I came from. But yeah, I think that John DeLynn has got the, atheism, agnosticism side covered pretty well. And I just kind of wanted to throw another avenue for people, to explore and
just think of John DeLynn fed AI all 40,000 hours of his episode and like try to condense that into a 283-page book. I dare you, AI.
Yeah, it would be like
I think John is the first guy you see when you come out. John gets them right when they're fresh and ready and hurting. So, I mean, there's something to be said about that niche, but those stories are raw and real. So
they are. Yeah. Yeah. I
actually did you watch any of John's shows as you were coming out, and did anything resonate with you? Any one of those? Because, I'm trying to butter up John to try to get on his program someday. So.
Oh my gosh. Let's just put it this way. I know John DeLynn and he doesn't know me. I mean, I listen to him for probably 10 hours a day for ever and ever and ever. I mean, probably 6 months. I probably listened to him on repeat.
Was anything like pretty amazing, like the Second Anointing type stories?
I didn't know anything about that. That LDS discussions deal. Oh my gosh. With dude, that
like
thing
they used
was
church sources.
Second-class saints,
church sources.
Yeah, just some great discussions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great, and so I think it's great to a point. I'm just going to be straight up. Like, I guess I haven't pulled any punches in this interview. It's great to a point to make you know that you are not insane. Like when you leave the church and you walk out of those doors,
you think you're the only one.
Yeah, I literally thought, which is just crazy to me now. And I think that's a really good thing to be like, okay, you're not. But again, the negative to that is where you keep addressing the trauma over and over and over again of leaving. I don't think that's healthy for our community. Okay. I'm just sorry.
It's one
if
thing
that
to rip
hurts.
the Band-Aid off. It's another thing just to keep on putting tape on your arm so you can rip more hairs off every day.
Yeah. I don't think that's healthy for our community. And he's the biggest voice in our community. In the ex-Mormon space, he is the biggest voice. And so for it to just kind of keep going down this path of and sensationalizing hurt. I'd never been wronged by a bishop, but I know that they wrong people. Okay. Because I've listened to it on John DeLyn's podcast. Okay. I've never been, given hush money. I've never been, and all these things. And I think it creates this agitator, perspective where we're constantly chasing the church, trying to find what's wrong with them and bringing up that hurt, reopening up that wound. Sorry.
No, you want to focus on healing and not hurting. And I feel like sometimes those stories can be draining, because I can tell my story 100 times and it's draining because it's traumatizing for people to hear it. So, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you can only focus on the negative aspect, and you just hope at the end of those stories, people have an ending like yours where they have found peace and happiness and a way to move on from those kind of traumas in a positive way for themselves, and not that they're just now sitting with a broken shelf.
And I think everybody's voice is important. That's why, our show was founded on trying to get more exposure to smaller podcasts and things, just so that people had, more choices, and that, everybody is going to reach somebody somewhere. Just like you have to pass out as a Mormon, 100 plates of cookies to your neighbors before maybe someday they're going to say, okay, elders, come on in. What do you have to say? My Mormon neighbor is a nice person, whatever. And so same thing with podcasters. Everybody has a different voice that's going to reach different people for different reasons, and it's going to be part of their path, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah. So one thing I was going to say real quick is that Kathleen Melanakis' book about counterfeiting and Mormonism was eye-opening for me, as far as digging in a little bit. Because, and another thing that I'm waiting for someday, I hope, is what Joseph Smith's older brother, that was the
Alvin?
number 2 guy in the church, Hiram, right?
Yeah.
He gets martyred with Hiram. There's probably thousands and thousands of papers and books and things written about Joseph, and we know almost nothing about Hiram.
That's true.
Kind of weird to me.
Yeah, that is
kind of weird.
So I'm challenging all the historians out there. Find out everything you can about Hiram Smith and write a good book. And if there is a good book and you're watching this, write it down in the comments. And I want to see if if that book is true to its title, that it's a good book about Hiram. So there you go. And one other thing
Hold your breath,
I'll say
no, just kidding.
is that was there a video that you did, a show that you did that like did way better than all your other shows, and you're like, wow, this is amazing. I'm getting on the map. And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, we did an episode on Micah Wilder, which is do we want to open
Wilder than most?
Michael. Okay, so Micah Wilder kind of appeals to the evangelical movement, where he is somebody who left the Mormon church while on his mission, or whatever, mentally left it at least, comes home from his mission, ends up baptizing, or his whole family gets saved in the Christian church. It's this happy, he's touring, he's this, he's that. Oh, wow. We're sensationalizing the story. Come to find out, dear heavens, he is living a second life, a polygamous lifestyle. Hey, you can take him out. You can take him out of Mormonism, but you can't take Mormonism out of him. A polygamous. Sorry, he's living a polygamous lifestyle, and I had just been saved, and I had watched this dude's video, and thought like, yeah, cool. Like, I want to do something like what he's done. And I, like,
now you're saying, but not the polygamy part.
No. And then it just kind of like hit me, like blindsided me, that he had been living this life that was totally, contrary to what he was showing from the outside. It was very Joseph Smith-ish. It was very Mormon churchish. And it just kind of ticked me off. And so Di and I recorded on this Micah Wilder thing and the Micah Wilder case. And just, it was one of our like very first episodes, and it's done really well. I wish it wasn't one of the ones that did really well. I wish there's some other great ones that I think are better. But it just kind of hit, when people are talking about something, we were talking about it, which has never really been my deal. Especially now. I've tried it and I don't really like it. I think it's kind of, anyways. Sell out of me. Like, I have a story to tell. I'm going to tell that story. I need to stop moving around and trying to be in the Mormon tabloids. So anyways, so we told that. You guys are getting me really unhinged. So we told that story, and it has, I don't know, 1,700 views or something. We're a tiny channel, we're small. Yeah. And
if you would recommend, like, if anyone wants to watch me, like, one of my favorite one to start with, and if it resonates with you, this would be my recommendation.
Yeah, my favorite one would be I really like a lot of them all. I like Fetch the Mormons, which is when people chanted F the Mormons at football games. I think that's interesting. Are my Mormon spiritual experiences real? I actually think that's a great video where we talk about, like, were my experiences within the Mormon church real? The Gospel of Obedience, I actually think that's really interesting, where it talks about how the church leverages people's like sincere want to be obedient, and how they use it for their own personal good, and how that's not a healthy church environment to be in. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of good content. What's funny about being a content creator is the stuff that I think is like rock solid gets like 50 views, and the stuff where I'm like, oh, it's okay, it gets like all these, and I'm just like, where's the justice in this? Like,
that's right.
The stuff that I kind of don't even really like.
If Satan exists, Satan is in the algorithm.
He could be. Dun, dun, dun. That's how they're infiltrating.
That's right.
But no, watch them, and if it's your flavor, it's not super rah Christian. It's not super we hate the Mormons. It's just, I think it's kind of right in the middle. And maybe that's, that's kind of where I want it to be. And I want it to land wherever it's going to land. And we'll just see where it goes from there. So,
yeah. So Debbie and I participate on a show called Tuesdays with Tim. And it's at 8 p.m. Mountain Time every Tuesday. We're going to invite you to hop on every now and then. I'll send you links every now and then and see if you want to come and join us. Because it's just like we're in Tim's living room.
So it's a discussion between,
and we're just talking about our experiences. We're not we don't normally have charts and graphs, and we're going to do a historical analysis of what happened in 1830 or anything like that. We're just like, what are our experiences, right? We have a guy named Diamond Dave, who you met, I think, last night, and he represents.
I did meet Diamond Dave,
a younger guy compared to the rest of the panel, who was a convert, which is different from the rest of the panel. And so we would even be willing to have a Christian on our panel, if you'd ever like to hop on.
the token Christian.
The token Christian. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think it's interesting because I think it's also a nice voice. I think you have a nice way of looking at life, and
it's healthy.
Yes.
So our thing isn't about, tearing anything down, but just presenting our experiences and letting people think about their own experiences while we're talking, right? And so, so that might be the thing. And this show this week is 4 times more views than our average show.
Oh, really?
And not even like 14 hours. And so I'm going to credit my wife. She made a killer thumbnail, and it's then the title's killer that I came up with, which is why is Mormonism dying? Right. So the why is sort of parenthetical because it's just our experience about that. And then we actually do show some charts and graphs, but just very minimally in the middle. Everybody's welcome to check that episode out.
Right
Thanks for coming on the show.
Do you have
Everybody
anything new coming out?
subscribe.
Do you podcast every week, or how often do you put out content?
Yeah, we release every
Sorry, Jane,
Wednesday.
before you shut it off. Okay.
Yeah, we release every Wednesday, so we're released today. And we did an episode today on, it's called an ex-Mormon sacrifice, and it's called Community, an ex-Mormon sacrifice, talking about how when you leave the Mormon church, you lose your community and you have to try to rebuild that somewhere else. And so it's Di and I talking about that. And yeah.
And I like to do collabs where if you think that this show would be kind of a cool thing to run on your show, you could do on like Saturday as a special. That way we both can get each other's subscribers if, people want to.
Well, you might be able to reach more people because I think Gene does have an interesting community as far as his people who watch him, because it is smaller, but I think people could
go to your channel and subscribe. I've never seen an episode that I've done that YouTube says has gotten like more than like 3 or 4 subscribers at one time, except for when I interviewed Radio Free Mormon. That was like 200 subscribers because of that. I went from 125 subscribers to 350 subscribers in a week.
Well, so he should hang out with me because I think he's a cool guy. And he's from
Washington.
The same neck of the woods. Yeah. Well, I have a little business up in the same town as him, and me and him should get together. So
yeah, that would be fun. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Like and subscribe. Do the things. Christmas is coming. Hope everybody's ready. New Year's coming. I hope everybody's okay. One thing for me is when the days start to get longer, I start to feel better. I'm one of those guys that seasonally, sort of goes in sort of not a depression, but it's a slumpy time of year for me. And so, bah humbug, but I still love Christmas, whatever. All right. Everybody have a great rest of the year. Bye-bye. And thanks for coming on.
No problem.